patrol officers around the building in cars, by foot. We controlled the access to the building. And then additional layers of security in the building, we also controlled access into other areas such as the military command center.
And what is your background in this?
I had been in the law enforcement security field for, I guess, 15 years before I went to the Pentagon.
So take us to the morning of September 11th, 2001. How did your day begin? When did you first arrive at the Pentagon? Where was your office located?
I recall that day as a beautiful blue sky day driving to work. I had actually taken the week off before then. I was well rested, fortunately. And I got in early and decided to eat a big breakfast and I went to my office early in the morning I guess I got there about between 7:30. And I was just catching up on things that I had from the previous week. And then around 8 something, I got a call from our public affairs office, Glenn Flood, who I would work with quite frequently. And he said, John just saw on the TV there was a plane hit a tower in New York. What are you doing for security in the Pentagon? And I didn't know about it, so I immediately turned our TV on. And I saw the one tower smoking.
This is about 8:45.
About 8:45, yes. And it wasn't long after that, then the second plane hit. What I did in the very beginning was I called our operations center and to push up our security levels. We have in DOD what we call threat conditions or threat cons. So we were at threat con normal, and I raised it to threat con alpha, one level up. Basically, that was to put more visibility on the outside. Not knowing what may happen, I wanted to have more visibility if anyone was looking at us. And also for the employees themselves, I wanted the employees to see that we are doing something to increase the security around the building.
Now let me stop you there. How quickly were you able to mobilize that higher elevation of security?
Pretty much instantaneously. Just within a few minutes, we would put people out, more people out visible on the outside of the building.
Do you remember what you first thought when you saw the first plane hitting the first tower?
I didn't think it was just a simple plane hitting the tower. It's just too big a building, to be, and I thought it was some type of terrorism, particularly with the World Trade Center because he had been hit before. So I was suspicious right in the beginning that it was a terrorism act.
And in the time between the first plane and the second plane in New York, what were you doing?
I was coordinating with my personnel. I was going to talk to my boss, David Cook, or everyone called him Doc Cook, who was talking about what we were doing, thinking about would anything happen here, and I guess in my mind I was saying that's just a New York thing. It won't happen here. But it's kind of wishful thinking that you don't think things will happen to you. But later on, about a year later, I was going around the country giving lessons learned from 911, and my first lesson is don't think it won't happen in your watch, because it could happen. So. But I was talking to just kind of coordinating and seeing where things were and trying to get an assessment of what was going on in the world that day.
It was shortly after 9 o'clock. Live cameras now in New York where people were able to see the second plane hit the second tower. Were you watching at that time?
No, I was pretty much moving around the building. Went to our operations center first, went down to see Mr. Cook's there, and was kind of moving back and forth between my office and our operations center.
So when did you hear about the second plane, and what was your reaction then?
Actually, I happened just to come back to my office and saw the second plane hit. I just came back in just for a brief moment, and I saw the second plane hit, and then that confirmed that it was an attack.
So then walk us through the mobilization between 9:05 and 9:30.
It was, again, just looking at what we could do to improve our visibility around the building, what would we do to be prepared for some event that might occur at the Pentagon, making sure that our communications was intact in terms of communicating with all of our personnel around the facility, also trying to assure the different people in the building that we are doing some things to make sure you are safe today, because they were all seeing that on TV also. So we wanted to be sure we were doing something that would help calm the effect, calm them down, that nothing is happening here at the Pentagon at that time.
Were people nervous, concerned? What was the mood from people that you were interacting with at that point?
I think they were sort of somewhat concerned. I mean, the Pentagon's a unique building. I mean, we have a building that probably half the population is active duty military, and the other half of probably the civilians, most of them have been in the military. So it's a building that I would say is we could deal with the issue more so than a building where no one has been into a military situation. So there was some nervous apprehension, I'd be on everyone's part about what, is that all? Is that going to are we finished for today, or will something else happen? That was the main concern, not knowing what could occur.
The flight path for those planes flying into Reagan National is the Potomac, adjacent to the Pentagon, so it's not unusual that you would hear and see planes all day, from early morning until late at night. They
come right over as I said, the river entrance. One runway is right in line with the edge of the building. And so planes, normally they're commuter aircraft coming in. The larger planes would be further out towards the Potomac.
Did you hear or see anything unusual that morning?
No, there's nothing unusual that morning.
9:37, the plane hits the Pentagon. Where were you?
9:37, I had just walked in my office. I had just come through the door, and all of a sudden I heard this like a low rumble. This for several seconds, just kind of a rumbling noise, and then the light fixtures in the ceiling were just vibrating. My office was probably 80 to 100 yards from where the plane stopped, kind of around the corner from it. And one of my employees looked at the window and said, "Chief, we've been hit." And you could see this big black fireball, black smoke and fire rolling across the building on the west side. I immediately ran from there down to our operations center to get an assessment of what had happened. And when I got down there, I recall every phone in that room was ringing. Everybody was just simply calling, "What's happened? What's happened?" And I was looking at our TV monitors around the building, and I remember talking to Lieutenant Nesbitt saying, "Mike, show me the heliport camera," because the plane came in right by where our heliport was in. I kept saying, "Show me the camera, show me the camera," and finally Mike says, "It's blown up." And that's where the plane came in, and so we lost that camera. So I stayed in there for quite a while, and the guys there did a fantastic job. They had already talked to the fire department. They had actually even requested helicopter support because we knew there were going to be casualties. They had done a fantastic job. At the same time, we were getting the smell of some smoke was also coming in there, but they stayed there through the entire event. I stayed there for quite some time, and then I went through the inside the inner roadways in the building, and I wanted to get my eyes on the event to see what had occurred. So I went down this one roadway, and I could see where the hole, actually the plane, where it just finally knocked the last hole into the C ring. And the roadway there was about 3 or 4 inches deep in water because the plane, when it went through, it tore out all the water lines, and so there's water everywhere there. I tried to go in one of the stairwells, but it was just the heat was just so intense, real dense black smoke, and the windows started just popping out everywhere. So I went back to our communications center, and then finally I went around to the outside where I met with Jim Swartz, who was assistant fire